Hello indie game fans, Christmas is this week and a number of developers have already taken off for the rest of the year, so we'll have less new releases for a couple of weeks, but do expect more looks at the year that has been and the upcoming one for indie games. Despite that, there are always new indie games, so here's a look at what to check out in this edition of Indie Gaming this week. We begin of course with the release of Super Meat Boy Forever, a surprise announcement during the Game Awards that has been a long time coming. I think that it was initially slated for 2019 but got pushed and squeaks out just before the end of the year. In contrast to the first game, this is an auto runner which I think people are very mixed about, so we'll have to see. Another thing to bear in mind is that the team meat of today is different from the team of yesteryear, so let's see how they do. Twin Ruin is a decent looking twin stick shooter with the tagline "Switch bullet hell into bullet heaven", so something that might be of interest as well. This video is brought to you by No Place Like Home, a post-apocalyptic farming sim that looks pretty promising. The story goes that humanity has trashed the Earth and left for Mars, but a handful of people are left behind and you are one of them. Clean up the planet, gather resources and rebuild the farm in what looks like a clever new take on the genre. I do love farming sims and a post-apocalypse is a nice change of pace from the lush countryside that we usually get, but it could very well be a peek into the future if we don't do anything. Now, as of recording, the Steam page does state that the game is launching on Christmas Eve in early access, although the sponsorship information states next month, with no Twitter account or game website that I can check, so perhaps it will make it to launch after all, but certainly do give this a wishlist. No bigger games this week, so we'll roll into number 6, that being Rick Henderson, a side-scrolling shoot 'em up that looks pretty sweet. I do like this genre and the enemy formations, bullet hell patterns and pixel art looks fantastic, with the gimmick here being that it's supposed to be an endless one of these, which makes me curious. One more bullet hell title with the cleverly named Fishticuffs. It's a little tough to see, but you're controlling a hook, which you have to hit the fish with, but it does have a cool art style and quite an interesting limited colour palette. Could be neat, so we'll see how this goes. I enjoyed the original Override, so its sequel, Super Mech League, is of interest as well. It's a 3D brawler where you control giant robots, where the sequel takes place 7 years after the original, where the alien monsters have been defeated, and these are now used in Mech battle leagues as entertainment. The action looks great as always, with slightly tuned up visuals, and there's an interesting crossover in Ultraman being a part of this as well, which is weird but cool. For smaller games and ports this week, we begin with the release of the BIT.TRIP Series on Nintendo Switch. If you're familiar with Commander Video, you will no doubt be familiar with the Runner series, but the original, released almost 9 years ago, comprising of 6 games, BIT.TRIP Runner, Beat, Core, Void, Feat, and Flux, are making it to Switch, all of which are cool, weird rhythm games which are worth a play. Just covered Door Kickers 2 in my recap of the best of November, but the original gets ported to Switch and is one of the best real-time tactics games. DungeonTop is another standout roguelite strategy game that made it out of early access this year and makes the jump to Switch this week. I like the low poly look of Hexia, a strategy game that makes use of what else than hexagons. Looks pretty alright and could be neat. I really like the claustrophobic puzzle precision platformer Killer Chambers, which is about reaction time and execution, and I'm happy to report that it makes the jump to Switch as well. Malmyr is another neat strategy title, which unfortunately uses some of those same pre-made assets that we have seen so much of, but it does involve building automation systems, which seems pretty cool.
По моим данным, в городе не осталось более...
По городу были замечены отряды пандемик.
Для тебя как раз есть задание. Помочь нам решить одно важное и деликатное дело.
You don't see many decent indie third-person shooters since it's tricky to pull off, but Orange Cast Prologue will give you a taste of what's to come, but based on the trailer, does look promising.
Мир скоро изменится. Такие, как мы с тобой, станем его основой.
Гость хочет, чтобы ты высветил этого зверя, но такая и доставила бы голову к нему.
Тебе будет сложно в это все поверить. Ты точно готов?
Итак, тебе необходимо попасть в город и поговорить.
Мы просим проявить уважение к солдатам коалиции из другой фракции. Неважно, из красной...
Привет. Прости, что активирую тебя так поздно. К сожалению, у нас не так много времени, поэтому я должна рассказать тебе все в краткой форме.
Ты можешь мне не верить, но ты же сам не помнишь, что с тобой было до контакта на Сионе. Не так ли? Человеческая организация, СОФ, вмешалась в ход нашего эксперимента. Они сделали что-то с тобой. Я не знаю, на каком этапе, но ты потерял воспоминания и свою цель.
Also just covered the Hong Kong Massacre when talking about games like Hotline Miami, and as another title that makes it to Switch. The final Switch port this week is Traffix, a beautiful artsy puzzle game about directing traffic, and this whole lot of them just shows how Switch has become the indie platform of choice. The final, smaller game this week is Underponder, a first-person adventure and puzzle game that uses surreal environments. Looks creepy but may fall into that walking sim trap, but is something to keep an eye on. We kick off the rest of the best of the week with Mython Island, a monster taming RPG, which of course is one of my favourites. This does have roguelite elements, having both a story and a survival mode which is strange, and does not appear to have an overworld map for exploration, instead having branching choices similar to games like Slay the Spire. Seems very promising, so I'm curious about this. A beautiful looking sandbox builder is Atlas Architect, having you build entire kingdoms and fantasy lands with a couple of clicks of the mouse. This is perhaps a little too similar in concept to Townscaper in presentation, using very similar sound effects, but it does look like it has a nice variety of tiles and looks pretty chill in a similar way. It's releasing in early access, but I have no idea what the future is for this game, but it looks like a fun tool to play around with. Omori appears to have been a very long time coming, with more than a number of you pointing this out in the comments, and the Twitter account for the game somehow has 39,000 followers. This is finally releasing on Christmas Day and is an Earthbound style turn-based RPG with a unique hand-drawn art style. Despite the cutesy exterior, this does have some darker themes around depression, anxiety, and suicide, so it does come with a content warning for sure. Still, it looks like a good JRPG which should be neat, so it does have my interest. A title which I thoroughly enjoyed in early access is the roguelite deck builder strategy game Retropolis, which makes it out of early access, but based on what I've played, it's a no-brainer pick. Think Kingdom mixed with Slay the Spire and you get some idea. we're in charge of a colony of rats and have to construct buildings and defenses, train your troops and manage your economy while fending off wave after wave of enemies. Excited to see the changes in 1.0, and just a quick heads up, the price will increase after the 1.0 launch, so get in while you still can if it's of interest to you, taking the number 1 spot. To see more of the big picture, check out these awesome videos, and I will see you after the jump.